Some Disney villains go out with just a quick fall and call it a day, but others make you wonder how the studio ever allowed those deaths to happen in a kid's film. Here are the least to most gruesome Disney villain deaths from all their feature films. Starting at the very bottom, we have Doris from Meet the Robinsons at number 22. In the future, she manages to turn a whole army of helping hats into humanity's new overlords. Apparently, being a trusty robot just isn't good enough for her. To stop that future from ever happening, Lewis goes back to the moment when Goob and Doris signed the Inventco contract.
I am never going to invent you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. One devastating timeline rejection is all it takes for Doris to disintegrate on the spot. Talk about anticlimactic. The next death is where things get slightly more interesting. At number 21, we have Professor Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. And like a surprising number of Disney villains, he goes out the old-fashioned way. Compared to Doris, this already feels harsher because there's at least a clear moment of panic. What also makes the scene sting a little more is that he immediately decides to humble him. Still, compared to the deaths higher on this list, Ratigan's demise isn't especially horrible beyond the fact that, well, falling off Big Ben is still a terrible day. However, he's not the only rodent on this list. At number 20, we have the rat from Lady and the Tramp. It's true, Disney does spare us the actual killing blow by hiding it behind the curtain. But what really pushes this death above Ratigan's is everything that happens right before it. The rat sneaks into the nursery fully intending to hurt the baby, and right on time, Tramp rushes in and chases it around the room, nearly biting it multiple times before trapping it with nowhere left to go. It's the fact that this death was so physical and drawn out for longer than the others on this list that makes it more intense. In the end, the rat gets wiped out by the chaos it started. Which brings us to King Runard from Frozen 2 at number 19, who isn't exactly innocent on that front either.
Magic makes people feel too powerful, too entitled.
His fear of magic drives him to betray the North Aldra leader during what was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. From there, the whole situation explodes into violence.
It was a brutal battle. Your grandfather was lost.
Runard's death is relatively quick, but the fact that his son witnesses the entire scene adds an element of horror to it. Seriously though, what is with all of these Disney villains falling off of things? Because we see it again with Gaston from Beauty and the Beast at number 18.
Another one.
What makes Gaston rank above Runard is how the whole scene plays out. During his final fight with the Beast, Gaston begs the Beast to spare his life, which he does. Instead of leaving, Gaston decides to stab the Beast in the back, literally. This guy gets maybe 3 seconds of triumph before he plummets to his death.
Gravity.
At number 17, we have another villain who only gets a brief moment of triumph before all hell breaks loose.
Not again.
Compared to Gaston's cleaner fall, this one is way rougher because McLeach gets dragged through raging water and is immediately surrounded by crocodiles. What's crazy is that for a brief second, it actually looks like he might survive.
I whooped you! I whooped you!
This brief false hope is the worst part, however, as Mother Nature soon tips him over the waterfall, never to be seen again. And speaking of villains who tip over, Mother Gothel from Tangled finally gets the karma she's been collecting all those years she cheats death. Her demise, however, begins even before she falls out of the tower window. The moment Flynn cuts Rapunzel's hair, Gothel ages faster than milk left out in the sun. It's the pain in her voice and the absolute panic on her face that makes this death feel more intense. Unlike other villains of the list so far, Gothel's demise is all about body horror. You can even see her turn to dust before she reaches the ground. In fact, Gothel isn't the only villain on this list whose body never makes it to the ground. At number 15, we've got Scroop from Treasure Planet, who takes the usual Disney falling death trope and adds a bit of pizzazz. When the ship's artificial gravity is turned off, Scroop tries to use this to his advantage by sending Jim off to float and die. But instead, his actions come back to bite him in the butt.
Do say hello to Mr. Arrow.
Because he had already cut the rope earlier, Scroop gets entangled in the flag, which launches him straight into the vacuum. With no way back, it's safe to assume that he either dies from oxygen deprivation or freezes in the vacuum. Either way, it's a terrible way to go. Then at number 14, we have Bill Sykes from Oliver and Company, who's too busy chasing after Oliver and the gang to notice all the warning signs until it's too late. I mean, there is such a thing as being too focused, Sykes. During the chase, he willingly drove his car onto train tracks without considering the consequences. In fact, he doesn't even notice what happens to his own dogs. Roscoe's out here sizzling, and Sykes is too busy to even notice or care. In the end, it's this violent chain of events that ranks him higher than the others on this list. He crashes head-on into a speeding train, and you can even see his remains get thrown down into the river below. Next up, at number 13, we've got another villain who crashes and burns. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty takes the classic Disney villain fall and makes it more impressive. At first, you think Prince Philip is cooked the moment Maleficent turns into a dragon, literally. But with good magic on his side, he manages to subdue Maleficent.
That evil die and good endure.
Even as a majestic dragon, Maleficent still gets stabbed in the heart. Despite the agony, she still charges forward and tries to eat Philip, who dodges, leaving the Mistress of Evil to plummet to her death. And it's this combination of getting stabbed and perishing in a sea of fire that makes Maleficent's death stand out. Coming up next at number 12, we've got Shan Yu from Mulan, who goes out in one of Disney's loudest villain deaths. And I mean that very literally. After surviving the avalanche earlier in the film, Shan Yu still comes back for round 2, only for Mulan to outsmart him once again. It's painful enough that Shan Yu literally explodes to death due to the fireworks, but it's the fact that practically all of China watches his downfall that makes it so much worse. This explosive fate was also shared by an iconic animated villain. At number 11, the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs goes out in the classic Disney death way, but with a bit more oomph. The worst part, though, is that just minutes ago, things seemed to be going so well for the evil queen.
He perished in the land.
The evil queen's death feels even more poetic when you realize she gets crushed by the same boulder she tried to kill the dwarves with. To top off the grisly factor, the vultures nearby look more than ready to feast on her remains. The evil queen tried to play God, and look where that got her, which could also be said for Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame at number 10. This man spends the entire movie acting like he gets to decide who is pure and who deserves punishment.
This is an unholy demon. I'm sending it back to hell where it belongs.
I'm sorry, what?
Even in his final moments, he's still preaching about divine judgment.
And he shall smite the wicked and plunge them into the fiery pit.
Well, God clearly listens. The symbolism here is what makes this one of the most iconic Disney villain deaths for me. Frollo falls straight into what looks like liquid hellfire, ending his reign of terror over the people. Moving on from this poetic death, at number 9, we've got King Candy from Wreck-It Ralph, who turns out to be someone nobody expected.
I'm Turbo, the greatest racer ever!
At first, Turbo's entire goal is to win the race and maintain his position as the best racer. However, he forgets all about that once he becomes part Cybug, relishing the speed and strength it gives him. Unfortunately, he soon finds that the cons far outweigh the pros of this new upgrade.
Go into the light!
When Ralph creates the beacon to lure in all the Cybugs, Turbo realizes way too late that he counts too. He knows exactly what's happening, but can't resist the pull as he gets zapped out of existence. And speaking of villains who get zapped, at number 8, we've got Ursula from The Little Mermaid, who thinks having King Triton's trident makes her invincible. But just a few minutes later, Eric, a mere mortal, impales her with the ship's bow. As if that's not harsh enough, the studio throws lightning into the mix, making sure Ursula's insides are thoroughly sizzled as she dies. The movie even shows us bits of her torn flesh scattering all over the ocean floor. Somehow, though, Disney decides to amp it up with our next villain's death. At number 7, we've got Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas, who loves gambling on other people's lives. But it's not so nice when it comes to your own, is it, Oogie?
How dare you treat my friends so shamefully!
Jack pulls on Oogie's sack thread, beginning to unravel him. That's like the human equivalent of ripping off the skin on the arm and then following up with the rest of the body. Ugh. Not only is it disgusting enough that Oogie's made up of bugs, but to watch them all scream as they fall into the lava just makes everything worse. It's like bits of Oogie Boogie face an individual death as each bug dies until there's only one left that Santa crushes under his boot. The same theme of being ripped apart carries on to our next villain in the list. At number 6, we have Scar from The Lion King, who gets the Worst Uncle Award for trying to kill his nephew not just once, but twice. Of course, both times it doesn't go the way he plans. Scar is clearly no match for Simba as he falls into the flames. He gets a temporary relief as he sees his minions, the hyenas, thinking they'll save him. Oh, if only he knew. You'd think showing Scar's death in the shadows would make it less gory, but knowing that hyenas maul their prey while they're still alive makes this scene so much worse. That means Scar feels every bit of the pain as the hyenas claw and tear at him. And if that doesn't do it, the flames surrounding them definitely would. So far, being ripped apart has been a common theme in the higher ranks in this list. However, Disney decides to give us a completely unique and brutal death next. Now entering the top 5, we've got Commander Rourke from Atlantis: The Lost Empire. His greed for the heart of Atlantis makes him go unhinged, eventually leading to his undoing. When Rourke is about to kill Milo, he slashes the commander with a shard of crystal. This, in turn, starts to crystallize Rourke's entire body. You can already tell he feels incredible pain from his loud cries. You'd think your insides turning to crystal would slow you down, but nope, Commander Rourke forgets that he's a mere mortal. In a way, the blades did him a favor by ending his misery. Still, it's a horrifying way to go. At number 4, the Horned King from the Black Cauldron looks like a character straight out of a horror movie.
You shall satisfy the cauldron's hunger.
During his final moments, he's so confident that Taran will be the one sacrificed to the Black Cauldron. Never did he imagine he'd become the sacrifice instead. The Horned King tries to fight the cauldron's pull, but the more he resists, the more painful it looks. It's insane how horrifying Disney decided to make this film cater towards kids. But if you think the Horned King has it rough, wait till you hear about Hades from Hercules at number 3. This hot-headed god of the underworld has had it for Hercules since the moment the Fates revealed his prophecy.
Should Hercules fight, you will fail.
After learning of this, Hades tries his best to get rid of Hercules, until all that karma comes back to haunt him.
Get away from me! Don't touch me!
Now, you might say that being immortal, Hades can't technically drown, so why is he even on the list? While that may be true, I feel like being tormented by the souls in the river Styx for all of eternity seems like a fate worse than death. Because with the other villains, no matter how painful their demise is, it eventually ends. Sadly, Hades doesn't get the same luxury, and his immortality leads to never-ending suffering. Moving on up to our runner-up villain, we've got Clayton from Tarzan, who single-handedly traumatized so many of us with his death. During the final fight, Clayton gets more reckless in trying to kill Tarzan, slashing through the vines around him. He is so locked in on winning that he doesn't even realize one of the vines loosely wrapped around his neck until it's too late. That split-second lightning reveal of Clayton hanging is more gruesome than any other drawn-out death in the list so far. Which leads us to our number 1 villain death in this list. Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Man spends the entire film dabbling in dark magic and making deals with spirits he's never really in control of. Eventually, he accumulates too much debt, and Facilier realizes his creditors are finally here to collect. The absolute terror on his face as the voodoo spirits come after him is haunting. Plus, the fact that they sing his own song back to him, turning it into the soundtrack for his downfall, makes this scene more unsettling. In the end, his friends drag Facilier away as he begs for more time, panicking more and more as he gets closer to the other side. But no amount of begging prevents him from meeting his fate, and his petrified face gets permanently carved into his grave as the final touch, making Facilier's death the most gruesome and horrifying one in this list.